Have you ever looked at your bank statement at the end of the month and quietly wondered where the money went? Not in a dramatic way, just one of those small moments of curiosity. You know you've been careful. You're not living extravagantly. You're not filling your house with expensive gadgets or buying luxury items every week. And yet somehow it can feel as though your pension stretches a little less each year while prices continue to rise. Groceries seem higher than they used to be. Utility bills creep up. Insurance costs increase slowly over time. Many people assume the solution must be cutting back even more. Maybe skip a small treat, delay a short trip. Avoid the little pleasures that make everyday life enjoyable. But over the years, after observing many retirement households and listening to the experiences people share, and something interesting begins to appear. Often the real pressure on a retirement budget isn't coming from what we spend. It's coming from what we keep. The things that quietly fill our homes often carry hidden costs that we rarely think about day to day. Not just the original price we paid for them, but the ongoing costs that come with keeping them. Space, maintenance, repairs, replacement, and sometimes the simple habit of buying something again because we forgot we already had one tucked away somewhere. Today I'd like to explore a gentle idea that many people find surprisingly helpful. Owning a little less can sometimes make retirement feel a little easier financially. If you enjoy thoughtful conversations about decluttering, simple living, and creating a calmer home environment, you may find this channel helpful. And if that sounds like something you'd like more of, you're always welcome to subscribe so we can continue exploring these ideas together. Now, when people begin thinking about how clutter affects their lives, the first place many of them notice it is their home. For most of us, the family home made perfect sense for a long time. It was built for a busy household. Children needed bedrooms, closets filled with coats and school clothes, basements held toys, sports equipment, and boxes of school projects that once felt far too meaningful to throw away. Holiday decorations accumulated year after year. Extra furniture appeared when relatives visited. Storage spaces slowly filled with things we thought we might use again someday. During those years, the house felt exactly the right size. But something subtle often happens over time. The children grow up, they begin lives of their own. The house becomes quieter, and yet the house itself rarely changes. The same number of bedrooms remain. Closets still hold belongings from many different chapters of life. The basement continues to store boxes that haven't been opened in years. Before long, many retirees find themselves living in a home designed for a full family, while only one or two people remain. You may have noticed this yourself. A guest bedroom used once or twice a year, closets filled with clothing that hasn't been worn for a long time, shelves in the basement holding items that once seemed important but haven't been touched in years. Entire rooms slowly shifting from living spaces into storage spaces. And this is where an interesting financial question begins to appear. Every square foot of that home still costs money. Property taxes continue every year. Heating and cooling run through every season. Insurance covers the entire structure. Electricity flows through rooms whether they are used daily or not. Cleaning, maintenance, and repairs apply to the whole house. Even a room that is rarely used still needs to be heated during the winter and cooled during the summer. The spare bedroom with older furniture still contributes to the overall cost of the home. The attic full of boxes still exists inside the square footage that must be insured and maintained. The basement filled with someday items still requires lighting, upkeep, and care. When you pause and look at it from this perspective, many retirees are quietly paying a surprising amount of money each year simply to store belongings they no longer use. It's almost like paying rent for clutter. Minimalism, in its simplest form, simply helps people see this more clearly. It isn't about living in empty rooms, and it certainly isn't about giving up comfort. Instead, it begins with a gentle question. Do I still need this much space for the life I live today? Many seniors are surprised by the answer when they begin sorting through their belongings. They realize they don't actually need nearly as much space as they once did. The house that once felt lively and full may now feel oversized. Not emotionally, but practically. There may be more space to clean, more rooms to maintain, more expenses connected to areas that are rarely used. And once that realization appears, it sometimes opens the door to a decision many retirees eventually consider: moving into a smaller, easier to manage home. For some people, that might mean a modest single-level house. For others, it may be a comfortable apartment or a condominium. Some choose retirement communities where lawn care and maintenance are handled for them. Every situation is different, of course, but financially, the difference can sometimes be remarkable. Selling a larger home and moving into a smaller one often unlocks a significant portion of home equity, sometimes $50,000, sometimes $100,000, sometimes even more. That money can strengthen retirement savings, create additional monthly income, or simply provide peace of mind. And the benefits rarely stop there. Smaller homes usually bring lower property taxes, lower heating and cooling bills, less maintenance, less cleaning, and fewer unexpected repair costs. Many retirees discover that downsizing quietly extends the life of their retirement savings by many years. What surprises people most, though, is what happens emotionally. Once the extra belongings are sorted and the home becomes simpler, many discover they don't actually miss the extra rooms. Instead, they often describe something else: a sense of relief. Life feels lighter. Daily routines feel easier, and the home begins to feel less like a long list of responsibilities and more like a place to simply enjoy living. And I'm curious about something. Have you ever looked around a room in your home and realized that most of the things in it are simply being stored rather than used? If you have, you're certainly not alone. When people begin looking more closely at how their homes change over time, another pattern slowly becomes visible. It isn't only the space our belongings occupy, it's the quiet responsibility that comes with keeping them. Every item we bring into our homes asks for something in return. Sometimes it's just a little bit of attention. Other times it asks for maintenance, cleaning, repair, or eventually replacement. When we are younger and our homes are busy, we rarely notice these small responsibilities. There is energy in the household. Things get fixed, cleaned, or replaced without much thought. But retirement often changes the pace of life. Income becomes more predictable, sometimes more limited. Energy becomes more valuable. And suddenly the number of things that require care around the home becomes much more noticeable. Take a moment and think about the many systems that exist inside a typical house. There is the roof protecting everything inside, the plumbing running through kitchens and bathrooms, heating systems that keep the house comfortable during colder months, cooling systems that help during the summer, electrical wiring hidden inside the walls, kitchen appliances that support everyday routines, washers and dryers working quietly in the background, windows, doors, flooring, lighting fixtures, furniture, and countless small details that keep a home functioning smoothly. Every one of these things will eventually need attention. Sometimes it's routine maintenance, sometimes it's a repair, and sometimes it's a full replacement. When a house is large and filled with belongings, the number of things that can go wrong naturally increases. More rooms usually mean more furniture. More bathrooms mean more plumbing. More appliances mean more opportunities for something to stop working unexpectedly. And over time, those moments appear one by one. A refrigerator suddenly stops cooling properly. The washing machine begins making a sound that wasn't there before. The furnace needs servicing before winter. A small roof leak appears after a heavy storm. Even outdoor areas quietly add to the list. Lawns need mowing. Leaves collect during the fall. Trees grow and eventually require trimming. Gutters slowly fill and must be cleaned. When we were younger, many of these tasks felt manageable. We often handled them ourselves without thinking much about the effort involved. But as the years pass, those same tasks may begin to require outside help. Someone to mow the lawn, someone to clean the gutters, a technician to repair an appliance, a contractor to fix plumbing or roofing problems. Each visit brings another bill. Individually, these expenses rarely feel dramatic, but over time they form a steady pattern of small surprises that slowly chip away at retirement savings. For someone living on a fixed income, those unexpected expenses can create real stress. Minimalism changes this situation in a quiet but practical way. When people begin simplifying their homes, they also begin removing layers of responsibility. Fewer belongings mean fewer things that can break. Fewer rooms mean fewer systems that require maintenance. Less furniture means less cleaning and fewer repairs. Smaller spaces are easier to heat and easier to cool. Even outdoor maintenance becomes simpler when the property itself is easier to manage. What many retirees discover is that simplicity does not mean sacrificing comfort. In fact, the opposite often happens. The home becomes calmer. Daily routines become easier. Instead of constantly managing possessions, people begin enjoying the space they live in. Financially, the benefits follow naturally. Maintenance costs appear less often. Monthly expenses become easier to predict. Savings remain available for the things that truly matter. Perhaps a visit with family, a favorite hobby, a short trip that has been on your mind for a while, or simply the comfort of knowing your finances feel steady. For many retirees, simplifying the home becomes one of the most practical financial decisions they make. But there is another place where clutter quietly affects spending, and many people are surprised when they begin to notice it. The kitchen, more specifically, the pantry, the cupboards, and the small drawers where household supplies tend to collect. At first glance, these spaces might not seem connected to retirement finances at all, but they are actually one of the places where money quietly slips away without us realizing it. The reason is something very simple. When spaces become crowded, it becomes difficult to see what we already have. Items slowly move toward the back of shelves. Boxes hide behind other boxes. A jar placed in the cupboard a few weeks ago disappears behind newer groceries. Before long, the kitchen begins holding far more than anyone realizes. You may have seen this happen. 2 bottles of olive oil on different shelves, 3 jars of the same condiment, multiple containers of a spice used only occasionally, an extra box of pasta sitting quietly behind another, cleaning supplies stacked behind cleaning supplies, vitamins stored in more than one cabinet. None of this usually happens intentionally. It simply happens because cupboards slowly become crowded. And once a space becomes crowded, visibility disappears. Then something predictable happens during the next grocery trip. Standing in the store aisle, a small thought appears. I'm not sure if we still have this at home. To be safe, another one goes into the cart. Another bottle of vitamins, another cleaning product, another jar of something that might already be sitting quietly in the cupboard. Over time, this creates duplication. Food slowly moves further toward the back of shelves. Expiration dates pass quietly, and eventually some of those items end up in the trash. Many retirees are surprised when they begin decluttering their kitchens and discover just how many unused items were hiding there. Cans that expired years ago, half-used ingredients from recipes that were never made again, duplicate spices purchased several times without realizing it, cleaning products bought again simply because the first bottle couldn't be seen. Each item may only cost a few dollars, but when this pattern repeats month after month, the total cost becomes much larger than expected. Even a small amount of wasted groceries each week can quietly add up to hundreds of dollars over the course of a year. Simplifying these spaces changes that situation in a surprisingly simple way. It restores visibility. When cupboards are cleared and organized, everything becomes easier to see. You open the cupboard and immediately know what you have. You know what should be used soon. You know when something truly needs replacing. And perhaps most importantly, you stop buying duplicates. Shopping becomes calmer and more intentional. Instead of wondering what might be needed, you already have a clear picture of what is in your kitchen. Many people who simplify their kitchens notice something interesting. Their grocery habits naturally begin to change. Meals become easier to plan. Food waste drops dramatically. And grocery bills slowly begin to shrink. Not because they are eating less, but because they are wasting less. Food that was already purchased actually gets used. Items rotate through the pantry before they expire, and the kitchen becomes a place that supports everyday life rather than quietly creating confusion. The same principle often applies to other household items as well: medications, supplements, cleaning products, toiletries. When these items are visible and organized, there is rarely a reason to buy extras. You know exactly what you have, and you know exactly when it needs replacing. Many retirees discover they save a surprising amount each month simply by avoiding duplication and waste. Over the course of a year, those savings can become quite meaningful, all from a simple shift toward clarity in everyday spaces. And clarity has a way of quietly reducing unnecessary spending. Up to this point, we've mostly talked about the practical side of owning less: lower housing costs, fewer maintenance surprises, less waste in everyday spending. But there is another benefit of simplifying our homes that is a little harder to measure, and in many ways it may be the most powerful one of all. It has to do with how we think about what we already have. Throughout most of our lives, we are surrounded by messages that gently encourage us to want something new. A newer appliance, a newer phone, a different style of furniture, clothes that replace something that still works perfectly well. Advertising is built around this idea. It quietly suggests that happiness might be waiting in the next purchase. And even after retirement, those messages never really disappear. Television commercials introduce the latest product. Stores fill their shelves with updated versions of things we already own. Without realizing it, many people find themselves in a quiet cycle of upgrading. The television works fine, but a newer one appears. The kitchen appliance still functions well, but another model promises a few extra features. Clothes are purchased not because they are needed, but simply because something new looks appealing. Each decision feels small at the time, but over the years, those small decisions quietly add up. Minimalism introduces a different way of thinking. Instead of focusing on what might be missing, it encourages us to notice what is already here. And slowly a new idea begins to take shape. The idea of enough space, enough belongings, enough comfort. For many retirees, reaching that point feels surprisingly freeing. When you walk into a store and realize you already have what you need, something interesting happens. The pressure to buy disappears. Shopping stops feeling like entertainment. Stores become places you visit with a purpose rather than places you wander through out of habit. Advertisements lose much of their influence. Many people describe this shift as a quiet kind of financial freedom. They see something new and simply think, what I have already works. That simple thought protects a retirement budget more effectively than most people expect. Without actively trying to cut spending, spending naturally becomes lower, because the desire to constantly bring new things into the home slowly fades, and the home itself begins to feel calmer, less crowded, less demanding, more comfortable. But there is one more aspect of simplifying our homes that many people only begin thinking about later in life. It's a subject that can feel a little sensitive, but it's also an important one. Eventually, all of the belongings we collect throughout our lives will need to be sorted by someone. For many families, that moment becomes unexpectedly difficult. Children or relatives may find themselves standing in a house filled with decades of possessions, boxes stored in the attic, furniture in every room, closets full of clothing, basements holding items that haven't been touched in years. For loved ones who are already grieving, sorting through everything can feel overwhelming. Sometimes the task becomes so large that professional clean-out services are hired simply to manage it. Those services can cost thousands of dollars, sometimes even more depending on the size of the home and the amount of belongings inside it. In other words, clutter can quietly become an expense that someone else must eventually handle. Simplifying the home during retirement changes that situation in a very thoughtful way. When people begin letting go of excess belongings, they are not only improving their own daily lives, they are also making life easier for the people they care about. Instead of leaving behind a house full of difficult decisions, they leave behind a home that has already been thoughtfully simplified. The items that truly matter remain. The things that are no longer needed are donated, shared, or passed along to someone who can use them. And sometimes the process creates meaningful moments while everyone is still together. A favorite chair might go to a daughter who has always loved it. A small collection might be passed along to a grandchild. Old photographs might be sorted and shared while stories are remembered together. Rather than leaving those choices for someone else to make later, they become moments of connection today. Financially, the benefit is simple. The value of the estate goes where it truly belongs, to the people you care about, not to storage units, removal companies, or disposal services. Simplifying the home becomes an act of generosity as much as it is an act of practicality. And when people begin seeing it that way, and the process often feels far more meaningful. Minimalism is sometimes misunderstood. People imagine empty rooms or strict rules about how many things you're allowed to own. But in reality, that isn't what this conversation is about at all. It's simply about removing the things that quietly drain our time, energy, and money, so that we can protect the things that truly matter. Comfort, peace of mind, financial stability. Your pension represents a lifetime of work, years of effort, years of discipline, years of responsibility. It deserves to support your life in retirement, not slowly disappear into the hidden costs of maintaining things you no longer use. The encouraging part is that meaningful change rarely begins with something dramatic. Most of the time, it begins with something very small. A single drawer, one shelf, one cabinet. Take a few minutes to empty it out completely. Look at what is inside. Keep the items that truly support your daily life. Let go of the things that no longer serve a purpose. Small steps like this have a way of creating momentum. A little more space appears. The room begins to feel lighter. Daily routines become easier. And slowly the home begins to feel calmer and easier to manage. Before we finish today, I'd love to hear something from you. Is there a space in your home that felt noticeably off, say it all, after you decluttered it? Sometimes even clearing a single drawer or closet can completely change how a room feels. If conversations like this about simplifying life and creating a peaceful home resonate with you, you're always welcome here. And if you'd like to continue exploring these ideas together, subscribing is a wonderful way to stay connected. Thank you for spending this time with me today. I truly appreciate you being here, and I look forward to our next conversation.